Hey there. So, I have to admit something. For years, I had this incredibly vivid image in my head. A Viking warrior, a great chieftain, laid out on his ship on a dark sea. Torches are thrown, flames catch the sail, and this blazing vessel, a floating pyre, drifts into the starry night, carrying its hero to Valhalla. It's epic. It's cinematic. It's probably not what happened. Welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Echoes of the Ancients. That image, the burning ship funeral, is one of the most enduring symbols of the Viking Age. You see it in paintings, in films, in video games. It feels intrinsically, authentically Viking. But today, we're going to gently untie that ship from its moorings and set it adrift on the waters of historical evidence. Because the story of how this powerful myth was born and what Viking funerals might have actually been like is a fascinating lesson in how history gets written and rewritten. Let's start with the source of the flame, so to speak. Where does this idea even come from? If you dig into the ancient texts, you find descriptions that seem to confirm it. The most famous comes from the 10th century Arab traveler and writer, Ahmad ibn Fadlan. He witnessed the funeral of a Rus chieftain, the Rus being Swedish Vikings who traveled the river systems of what is now Russia. His account is incredibly detailed, and yes, it involves a ship. But here's the crucial part. The ship wasn't set adrift and burned on the water. Ibn Fadlan describes the chieftain's body being placed in a temporary grave while his people built a new, dedicated ship. They hauled this ship onto the riverbank, placed it on a wooden platform, and then constructed a pyre on the deck. They placed the chieftain on the pyre, sacrificed animals, and even a servant girl, and then they set the entire structure, ship and all, alight on land. It was a stationary, monumental cremation. The goal wasn't a poetic seafaring flame. It was complete, efficient immolation. The ship was a tomb, not a drifting coffin. Now, think about the practicalities for a moment. I'm an engineer by trade, so this part really intrigues me. A wooden Viking ship, even a small one, is a massive, waterlogged, heavy object. It's designed to float. To get it to burn vigorously enough on open water to consume a body completely would be a tremendous challenge. You'd need an enormous amount of fuel and accelerant on board. In an age where timber and tar were valuable resources, setting a perfectly good, complex piece of technology adrift just to watch it maybe burn and then sink seems inefficient. And the Vikings, for all their legendary ferocity, were profoundly practical people. Their culture valued utility. A ship was wealth, it was legacy, it was life. Using one as a disposable pyre on the waves doesn't quite align with that mindset. The land-based pyre, or the even more common practice of burying the ship intact with the chieftain inside, makes far more sense. It's a permanent, grand tomb. So if the primary historical source describes a land cremation, and the physics are tricky, how did the burning ship set sail into our collective imagination? This is where story takes over from history. The myth was powerfully cemented by later medieval sagas, written down centuries after the Viking Age had ended. These are literary works, epic poems, family histories. And in them, you do find references to ship burnings. The saga of the Inglings, for instance, talks of a king whose body was borne to the shore, placed in a ship, and burned. But even these are often vague on the drifting detail. The real ignition point was the 19th century, the Romantic era. This was a time when Europe was looking back at its noble savage past with a nostalgic, dramatic eye. Artists, poets, and composers like Wagner in his Ring cycle latched onto the most visually spectacular version of the story. The burning ship on the water was a perfect symbol. It was about journey, transformation, a fiery exit. It was unbeatable drama. The myth served the needs of the 19th century romantic nationalist imagination far better than it served the historical reality of the 9th century Norsemen. Which leads me to a personal reflection. Growing up in Bangladesh, a land shaped by rivers and the sea, I've always felt a deep connection to stories about water and journeys. When I first read about Viking funerals as a kid, that image resonated with me on that poetic level. But moving to New York, becoming an engineer and an entrepreneur, I started to see the world through a different lens, a lens of structure, resources, and implementation. You start to ask, how would that actually work? And that question often leads you to a more interesting truth than the myth. The truth here isn't less meaningful. The reality of dragging a monumental ship onto land, building a pyre that could reach the gods with its smoke, and conducting days of ritual. That speaks to an incredible communal effort, a profound investment of wealth and labor to honor the dead. That, to me, is more impressive than a simple torch to the sail. It shows a society's values in action, not just in symbol. So, what's the takeaway from unraveling this myth? It's not that the Vikings didn't have spectacular, ship-based funerals. They absolutely did. The archaeological record is clear. From the Oseberg ship in Norway to the Sutton Hoo ship burial in England, we have stunning evidence of ships used as tombs. The myth gets the method wrong, but it captures the magnitude perfectly. The Vikings sent their honored dead to the afterlife with their most prized possessions, their transportation, their home. The ship was the ultimate vessel for that journey, whether it was buried in the earth, burned on a bank, or, in very rare and specific circumstances, perhaps set alight on the water. But the iconic image of the lone, flaming drakkar vanishing into the mists, that's a later invention, a story we told ourselves because it was too beautiful, too poignant, to resist. The past is always a conversation between what we dig up and what we dream up. Our job is to listen to both and to understand the space between them. That's where history truly lives. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Echoes of the Ancients. If these stories from the shadows of history resonate with you, please do share the podcast with a friend or subscribe wherever you're listening. It truly helps us keep bringing these narratives to light. For more from me, Ibnul J. Farabi, and the whole team, visit our production home at Light Not Studios. https://www.lightnotstudios.com. Until next time, take care.